Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassami. Good evening, everyone from the online community, or good morning if you're in Canada. So what should we think about? Buddhism, meditation, the difference between, say, I'm sure all of us were quite similar in our efforts when we first started meditation. Probably we all tried very hard to get something. I mean, I certainly did, to achieve something, and then that which was in the way of our perceived achievement, we would try to get rid of. I think that's a pretty common starting point. And I'm sure we all felt frustrated by that. I did. So even though I was trying very hard, there wasn't insight, there wasn't experience. And then the teacher starts, Luangpor Sumedho or Luangpor Cha. So Luangpor Cha would say, well, you want to be the Buddha, but you just came off the streets and you're a hippie. You just shaved your head 3 weeks ago and you want to be a Buddha tomorrow. I mean, is that reasonable? I said, no, it's not so reasonable. And you have never trained your mind, not really. I mean, you're not stupid, but you haven't trained your mind. And now you have to train. And probably in 5 years, you'll feel a bit better. 5 years? And so, of course, it's like Luangpor Cha, the great master, give me a mantra, whisper in my ear, bless me with holy water, do something. But 5 years of this torture, I don't know if I can take it. But he was right. How could I expect to be suddenly peaceful when my conditioning was very, very hedonistic and very intellectual? So there wasn't the foundation for peacefulness. Fortunately, I never did anything really cruel. I've never been a cruel person. So the basis was still very moral. My parents are very moral, very upright. My mother tells a story where she stole a potato, one potato, in 1944 when they were in Germany and running from Latvia, running from the Russians in the war zone, and she still felt bad about it. I mean, how honest is that? So we had a very high standard of integrity in our family. So that really served me well. So the barami I had was really much more from my parents and the goodness they gave me. My mother was very, very kind. My dad was quite he was a lawyer, but then he adapted. He was in electronics for a while, and then he was an accountant. So he had a good mind, could really adapt. My mother was fluent in 5 languages. She was fluent in Russian, German, English, Latvian, and her French was pretty good. So she was, we still had nice, good DNA. But I also grew up in the 60s where there was some experimenting with pharmaceutical products, which we won't mention here, and listening to all kinds of music and revolutionary ideas and social. So there was all of that, my social conditioning. But there was this yearning for peace, this deep, deep yearning for peace. And so I kept searching for a way to do this. And I came across my own insights and then Theravada Buddhism and then Luangpor Cha. And that's when the real work began, because now I had a vehicle. That was it, wasn't it? I had a vehicle. Before that, I had yearning. I certainly had a yearning for peace, and but I had no direction. I had no kalyanamitta. I had no teacher. I didn't have a community that believed in enlightenment or believed in. I didn't have a sasana, and so all of that was the social structure, the vehicle that when I went to Wapopong, I was just lucky. I just kind of plugged into this society which had enlightened beings and had morality and had a culture which praised renunciation and praised and was incredibly generous, and it's just mind blowing, really. And so I was gifted and to be in a society which was economically poor, but it was spiritually very rich. And this I'd never seen before. Really, people who are farmers working very, very hard all day, and then they come and during they meditate all night. Really? You can do that? And much, 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 much stronger than me. Some of the Mao they're really gang meditators, sitting up all night, chewing betel nut, spitting in cups, and then here I am. I'm trying. So I was inspired by the monks and the lay people, especially the women. The women were the real practitioners. The men we didn't see that much. We did. They'd often come for work projects and things like that. And then the whole society is kind of saying to me, "Go for it. You know, if you want to give enlightenment a go, we'll support you." Really? You mean free board and food and really? And I don't have to pay? It's when you like Thailand, you might take it for granted, but where I came from, there wasn't even the concept of this, wasn't even the idea of this. So it was quite mind blowing, but it wasn't easy because even though there was all this goodness around me, the mind was just terribly confused and frightened and angry and inspired and depressed and happy, and all the stuff that an untrained mind goes through. And when I look back at it now, there was no technique, there was no magic bullet, there was no formula, no esoteric teaching. There was Ajahn Chah's ebullience and his encouragement. There was the role models of Ajahn Aneg and Ajahn Lompaliam and some very great monks, really good role models. There was the example of high moral values. So there was society and Kalyanamitta. And within that, then I began to just struggle. But what carried me a lot was this society of goodness. And I think Ajahn Jayasaro once told me, he said, when you come to Thailand, Viradhammo, you're floating in an Ajahn Chah bubble. All you other people you meet are Ajahn Chah people. This isn't all of Thailand. Well, I don't know. Anyway, I like it. It's a nice bubble. It's very, very nice. So my own struggles were struggles we all have, but what was encouraged was more attitudes rather than attainments. So Luangpor never, I don't remember him ever talking about attainments. Even like jhana, I never heard much talk about that, or sotapatti. That was never the language that I heard. The language that I heard was orton, um, and then orton again, and then the next day orton. There was a lot of orton, and that was actually probably more profound than describing all kinds of fancy teaching, because that's what I needed to hear. Just trust in this vehicle, and orton, bear way. And then Luangpor Sumedho, I've been very fortunate with teachers. He's the one that understood my Western conditioning. Luangpor understood my conditioning too, but Luangpor Sumedho could explain to me how to use the Four Noble Truths, that my problem was vibhava tanha, that it wasn't the fear. So he kept molding my sense of direction and right view. But constantly the emphasis was, again, it wasn't on attainment, it was attitude. What is your attitude now to the way things are? And what's my attitude as well? Acceptance, uh, patient endurance, be more kind to yourself. Don't be so judgmental. Um, None like in the early years. Like I spent, even though I was at Wapopong for a while, Luangpor Cha kept sending me away, which I really, well, don't send me away. And I'd end up in these monasteries with like 5 people, maybe 4 monks, and the abbot's mother, who was a Manchu. And then is speaking a language which doesn't fit my book. My book is Fundamentals of Time. What are they speaking? Oh, a year later, I found out they're speaking Lao. I was really confused. I didn't know what was going on. I'm studying the book. What, really? I mean, because no one told me. I kind of just arrived and there were hardly any Farangs. And here's your book on Thai. I'm in Thailand. Fundamentals of Thai, it should work. I don't know what they're saying. So a lot of confusion. Just like I kind of come to some place and then everyone's over there, working over there. Well, how do they know to get there? I come an hour late. So a lot of like social confusion, but everyone all the time is very kind and humorous. It's funny for right? And when I was I was a samanera for almost 2 years, a year and a half. I had some debts to sort out in Canada, so I couldn't ordain as a bhikkhu. I could be a samanera. So I'm sitting with a 12-year-old for an hour for, for a year and a half. I want to be with the big guys. What am I? I'm 26 years old. I'm with a 12-year-olds. What is this? So I'd be bowing, and I didn't know how to bow. So my bum would be in the air, my sue. So the novices would poke me in the bum. Very humbling kind of experience. But it was serious. I tried very, very hard. Uh, and then over time, I saw that, again, I come back to the same thing, attitudes. And this is what I can develop. I can't change my mind overnight. And every time I try to attain something, I get a headache and get angry at myself. So and the more I tried, the more dosa I had, I found. I tried really, really hard, and I felt all this dosa would come up. I was trying so hard. And Luangpor Sumedho said, no, just ploy wang, or Tom. What do you mean ploy wang? What do you mean by ploy wang? What do you mean let go? Let go what? It's kind of confusion. What is this language about? It says jhana, sotapatti, anagami, arahant, no rebirth. And then he said ploy wang. What are you talking about? So, this kind of confusion. And the book says this, they say that. What am I supposed to do? But then every day, going to going to morning meditation, going to evening meditation, and just trying to sit there, just enduring. Because sometimes the meditations would be very long. Luangpor would give long, long discourses. I didn't know what he was talking about half the time, 90% of the time. So I just, you just have to try to be peaceful. And then I started to contemplate more like the Four Noble Truths. And well, what's the real problem? It's around tanha. Well, what? I mean, tanha. I want. I just want to get out of here. I don't want painful knees. I'm fed up with these mosquitoes. And where's the air conditioning? And what's the problem? Well, there's no air conditioning. That's the problem. No, it's tanha. So over time, simple ideas like that. I had where Apanya would help translate. Sometimes he was there. He just wrote. Sometimes Ajahn Prabhagro, he just wrote. But anyway, sometimes there'd be a Westerner to help. And slowly I started to pick up the language. And then the reflective mind started to function. Now it wasn't just me trying to get rid of, but me using intelligence and using the Four Noble Truths. And that was very enhanced by Luangpor Sumedho, really emphasizing and clarifying for me what the Four Noble Truths were about. Well, then, okay, now I've got a way of dealing with this now. It's not just confusion. So then what's the problem? The problem is attachment to craving. Okay, attachment to craving. It's craving. Well, I want something that I don't have, and I have something that I don't want. And we all know that. We all study that. But it's interesting when that actually clicks into consciousness, then I become a practicer of Buddhism. Until then, I'm just a struggling for trying to survive in this lovely society. And then suddenly the mind starts to reflect. It starts to look at experience objectively, contemplate the problem of suffering, figure out a solution. And that's the entry into the teaching, isn't it? And that entry, you forget, don't you? With some issues, you kind of forget about the pattern. Now you struggle and wait. What's the problem? It's the tanha. Tanha. Okay, what do I want? Whatever. And you see it again and again and again. And inside I found was like that. It wasn't just a one-off. Like suddenly I get the Four Noble Truths and I'm enlightened. No, the way it worked for me is delusion takes over again. Avijja, doubt grabs me or depression or something. And there I'm lost in it again. And then all of a sudden, you know that you know. What's going on? Oh, so the awake mind is a very ordinary thing. I know that I know what I feel, but it's also extraordinary because we can be so just lost in our thoughts and our struggles. So when we say the path of practice is a path of awakening, that's a kind of an attitude. It's an opening to the way things are. And then the power of delusion is powerful. Avijja is very, very powerful. It can just make you believe in doubts or revenge or all kinds of things. It can just grab your psyche. And that's the nature of avijja. Avijja makes us ignorant. That's why it's Kalyanamitta culture of talking about the Four Noble Truths. And so over time, I could see that my attempt to get something certainly didn't fit the Nibbana Sutta. I began to read that. Luangpor Sumedho introduced me to that. And I thought, well, something that's not about becoming, that really Then I clued into the whole idea of time, that if I'm trying to get something tomorrow or whenever, then that doesn't fit that. So the idea of a Kalika Dhamma, timeless, not a matter of time, it's here and now, that became very important for me. Because then as I understood that, then I could see when I'm trying to get something, oh no, that can't be it. That, it doesn't fit. The logic doesn't fit. It can't be it. I have to wait, know the way things are. And that insight, Luangpor would keep encouraging, not a matter of time, to be seen, Upanayika Dhamma and so on. And as that insight started to function more, I became more aware of the way things are. That's the awakened mind. Yeah, I feel terrible, but terrible feels like this. And then from that sense of presence, I could say, okay, I feel terrible, but what is the real problem in terms of the Four Noble Truths? And it's the tanha. Okay, what do I want? I want to feel happy. I don't want to, I think I had typhus, was in the hospital, all kinds of stuff you get. I want to feel comfortable. The heat is driving me crazy. These cicadas, why don't they shut up? Or whatever it is. I don't want the sound. I want my mother. And then, okay, that's the problem. It's not the particular experience I'm having. It's the craving around the experience, the not wanting or the wanting, the bhava or the vibhava. And that insight it kind of came and went, and became stronger and stronger and stronger until it was more and more constant. And that's the way of practice, is this gradual awakening to the way things are. And then only when you're really awake to the way things are can you really contemplate the Four Noble Truths. Because as long as you're trying to get something, you're not awake to the way things are. As long as I'm trying to get peaceful, I'm not looking at non-peace, as it were. So the settle, and this to me is really what samadhi would be pointing to. Not so much high states of mind, but a mind which can be really present to your experience right now. And if you're present to experience, then you'll see there's discontent. What's the cause of the discontent? You'll have your own insights around that. And from that, you get more and more better at developing the attitudes which you need to develop for your own conditioning, for the way you function. So my great teacher, besides my three great teachers, are four, mom, five. I put dad in there too. Mom and dad, Luangpor Cha, Luangpor, and fear. Fear is my biggest ajahn. Fear has taught me so much, so much. When I started out, fear was the enemy. It was like, this is bad. But if my consciousness is occupied, if 60, 70% of my time was occupied with fear and anxiety, then fear, obviously, if I understood it, was 60 to 70% of my freedom. So it was my ajahn. Fear was my ajahn. And then as I began to develop attitudes around the way I dealt with fear, I began to use the language of metta. Welcome, fear. Come, you can stay for a long time, forever. Counterintuitive. Get out of here. I don't want you. So the attitude and the language I developed was particular to my character. And so, I teach from that. So now around the language of tanha, you have vibhava, bhava, and kama tanha. So for vibhava tanha, I use non-resistance. That's a word that really works well for me, because vibhavatana for me is resistance. And don't want this. I want to get rid of it. I want to get rid of thought. I want to get rid of pain. So then when I put in the language of, for me, I put in the word, just the word, non-resistance, it reminds me of my own insights. So I've had insight about vibhava. I've learned about it because of my struggle with fear or with pain, whatever it is. And so we all have a body of insight. We're not, we're not devoid of insight. We've all struggled with things and we've seen how it works in our minds. So then for myself, I've tried to develop a language which creates an attitude based upon my insights. Yeah? And then that language just reminds me of that whole range of practice that I've had. So if I start a sitting, I'll quite often say that non-resistance. If I've got a headache, seem to get a lot of headaches these days. So you get a headache, non-resistance. Oh, then I see the resistance to the headache, non-resistance, or anything negative. And then I use for bhavatanha, I use non-becoming, because my whole practice from the start was becoming, achieving, getting somewhere, getting insight, getting samadhi, this kind of thing. And that's all bhava. So then I could see, and I struggle with that. No, it's not about becoming. It's about being rather than becoming. So then I introduced non-becoming. And then for the kama tanha, I saw that for me, kama tanha was really about consuming experience. Because kama tanha is about eating experience all the time, even if it's thinking. We can consume thoughts and ideas, or we can be consumed by them. We're consumers of experience. And that is always out into the objective world. So then I saw, no, I have to just have this sense of clear present moment awareness. It's like this. So I said, I would use language like clear presence. So then using 3 aspects from my own insight, but from the books and from my teacher, from my struggles, then I began to develop a language of attitudes. And I can do that. So it's not a language of experience that I'm trying to get. It's in a language of attitudes which help me to open to the way things are, awaken to the way things are. So it fits in with the idea of awakening. So that's what I always encourage folk that are on the path, is like, you have your own insights. You're constantly learning and seeing better. You're getting better and better at it. So develop your own language. Like when you understand something, get some language around it to help you remember, because it's very much about remembering. But what's been of late, it's very, for me, the understanding of the Brahma Viharas has been tremendously important. Tremendously important. I'd often contemplate, so what does an arahant look like? Like, is he 6 foot or 5 foot? Is it a guy or is it a gal? None of those fit. But to me, an arahant would look like the Brahma Viharas. Don't you think? How would he manifest, or she manifest? Would she manifest with a Thai accent or a Russian accent? Doesn't compute. But I think all of them would manifest as the Brahma Viharas. So it seemed to me then that any inclination towards the Brahma Viharas would be an inclination to enlightenment. So any inclination towards metta, of acceptance and a kind regard to myself and others, would be a movement towards enlightenment. So why is that? Well, metta is contrary to tanha, isn't it? Tanha is always about getting something or getting rid of something. Metta is about allowing things. So I began to see, sure, what is contrary to tanha is metta or karuna or mudita or upekkha. They're about non-desire, aren't they? And they all really are very fulfilling. They really quench the thirst of desire, but they don't create the addictions of desire. You know, when you relate to someone with love and you don't want anything back from them, not romantic love, not the love of attachment and that, but the love of openness and the love of care and the different ways. It's like that story with the Afghani family. You know, we provided food for them, and I was so happy. Generosity, right? When you really give from a generous heart, you're fulfilled. It's opposite of tanha. So then you start to see, the way I can act in the world, which is in the way of enlightenment, is sila, is dana, is the Brahma Viharas. And I incline towards that more and more, not just as like now I'm going to do bhavana I'm going to do metta bhavana, and then I'll do anapanasati, then I'll do a supa, and then I'll have a sleep, like some kind of a meal. There's a soup is the dessert? I don't think so. But it's not life isn't this kind of packaged thing, is it? Life is a flow. And so the Brahma Viharas are really a flow of openness. What should I do when someone breaks their leg? Should I practice metta, karuna, or mudita? It doesn't make sense. If they break your leg, your karuna comes out. You don't say, "Oh, great, you broke your leg. I have mudita for you." It doesn't work that way. Your heart is open and available. Because your heart is open and available, you see the child, and the child shows you a drawing that they did in kindergarten, and you're really happy for the child because the child is happy. That's mudita because your heart is open. And then someone else has COVID and a toothache. You say, "Oh, hey, how can I help you?" It's because the heart is open. And then when there's nothing to do, the heart's peaceful because it's open. And then metta is this kind of open acceptance of the way things are. So I think that Brahma Vihara is a very profound consideration for enlightenment. And to me, they're very, very profound because we are emotional beings. And I think sometimes, for me at least, too often I've just gone for high concepts and high ideas. So more and more, the more I abide here, bring my attention away from the intellect, away from thought, down into the heart. It's so fulfilling. It's so right. And there's a lot of wisdom here. There's a lot of wisdom that can function from here. And that's not based on tanha. That's just based on experience and what works. So those of you that we've Skyped, you've seen my room, right? And I Skype with the angel group once a month, and behind me is a picture of my mom on a shrine. And then next to me, there's my dad, and I got everyone there. And I just look at these pictures and say, "Thank you." That is such I'm not sitting there, "Thank you, thank you." 10 minutes of thank you. And then it's, it's just very natural, isn't it? And all you have to do is stimulate that part of the being, because we do feel gratitude quite naturally. So then it's not like meditation and then life, some different kind of a package. So if I look at a picture of Luangpor or Ajahn Chah, or just visualize them, there's the feeling of the open heart, of gratitude. And then giving back. Katanyu Katavedi, to have the opportunity to give back. We always say that, don't we? We say, when someone gives us an opportunity to serve, we say, "Thank you for letting me serve. Thank you for allowing me to give. Thank you for allowing me to express that part of my psyche. And then this gives the heart and mind an easeful, peaceful, calm. I mean, it's not perfect, and we still struggle, but that's a basis for enlightenment. It's a heartfelt basis of enlightenment. The more we do it, the better. We can get burned out with too much karuna, right? You can be that. But quite often, burnout with karuna is really not about karuna. It's more about, for me, it was more about worry. When karuna got, like with my mother, when karuna got mixed up with worry, then it wasn't karuna anymore. It was worry, wanting something, like wanting my mother not to suffer. And that wanting was polluting the karuna. When I saw that, I saw, oh, okay, that's what upekkha is about. Upekkha is about accepting that my mother has her karma to live through. I can help her a lot, but she still has her struggle and her whatever, but I can help her a lot. And when I differentiated that, then I saw that how karuna and upekkha were, that I can be very giving and helping others, but I'm not Jesus. Can't fix it. That was not a good joke, was it? Can we edit that, please? Well, you see what I mean? That I cannot fix your karma. You have your own work to do, but I can encourage you, and I can give you a cup of tea, or can I? Can I give you a cup? I don't know if I can. You see what I mean? So that then, in Buddhism, we say that try to pick up someone else's karma is foolish. To not pick up your own karma is foolish. So in caring for my mom, my own karma was to care for her. It's a good karma, the good thing to do, a joyous thing to do, and so on. And her karma was to pick up her own. And she wasn't, she was a wise woman. She could do it. She had lots of strength and fortitude. So she was okay in that way. And she was grateful that I was around. So the Brahma Viharas are I've never done them as these lists. I've never kind of, because it became too intellectual for me. I know it works. People say it works. I just did it quite naturally with people or pictures and things like that. And more I see that it is abiding here. Whatever stimulates this area for me is a good thing. And over the years, I've also seen attention here can show me contraction, like when I'm getting uptight, or when I'm getting stressed, or in the old days when I had a lot of fear. Ooh, was it here? Ooh, it was here, and here too in the guts. So the more I find that the mind just lets go and relaxes. Like I said in the meditation today, the end of the out breath. Very interesting to contemplate the end of the out breath, because that's where quite often the tension of holding and becoming is situated over many, many decades of life. And just like being with the whole out breath and just feeling it down in the guts there, you get the strong sense of openness in the heart. But that's not trying to get anywhere. I'm not trying to achieve anything. I'm just looking at the way things are. So when yesterday I just suggested nice playing around. Is listen to sound. Is awareness got a boundary? Does it have a center? And what I'm doing there is just look at life as it is. What is life really like now? It's like this. Observe. And then insight comes from that. But the observing is quite often, what's the word? Biased by desire. To observe purely without desire is actually rather difficult, because I want something. And usually I want to get rid of something, or want to attain to something, and so I struggle. So you come back to the Four Noble Truths. You're like, if in your observing, it just isn't working, something isn't working, then go back and say, well, how is it? What is it like right now? And then you see that there's a wanting, something going on. Pure observation is without desire, without an end game, without a program, without an agenda. Usually we have all that. We have an agenda in our observation. I want this, and that. We have a program of how I'm going to achieve something. We have an ideal of what I shouldn't be and what I should be. The ideal is that I have metta all the time, and that I'm very generous, and that I'll always be kind, and which is rubbish. The mind doesn't work that way. I'm not always kind. I'm not always generous. Sometimes I'm grumpy. Sometimes you don't want to know me, right? This is real life. So then our observation, if it's afflicted by idealism, that's a very common problem. I don't know about any culture, I think, right? Any spiritual culture. We have an ideal of what should be. I should be this and I should be that. And then the reality, I met a woman who said she didn't like her child. I said, really? That must be difficult. She just found her child annoying. Ooh, that's tough. But why not? Why should a mother like her children all the time? I don't know. I'm not a mother, right? But that seems to me, is that even possible? And yet the ideal might be, oh yeah, I like my child all the time. I won't do a survey. But what if you don't like your child? Is that wrong? No. To hurt the child is wrong. Yeah. To act it out is wrong. Yeah, because the child's going to be, but to know, oh, this is a feeling of disliking the child is honest and is kindness. Kindness to this person who's now feeling the dislike. And if you are patient with that, the dislike goes. It doesn't become embedded. If you don't accept it, then it becomes this kind of ghost in the back of the mind wanting to come up. No, go away. So in Dhamma practice, we have sila and dana and so on, but we always have the reality of the human condition, which is not ideal. If you have COVID and you look depressed and someone says, cheer up, you're a Buddhist, you should be happy. No, it doesn't work that way at all. So the idealism perverts the observation, the way we observe things. So that's what it's like this, and then it's all right. All right, I'll leave that for your reflection.